Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach. What's going on, guys? I hope you're well out there. We're going to take a look at some club previews today. Like I said last time for the club by clubs, used to do them individually, but we're just going to go more of a bulk lot, do sort of 4 or 5 at a time, just smash it out a bit quicker because it just took me a long time last year. I don't think I even got through all 18 clubs, so we're looking to make it a bit more achievable. But how's your break been anyway? If you've been keeping up with the videos, I've been away to Peterborough with a few mates, good time, so I scheduled a few vids, but we're back in town. Most people probably back at work. How are those vibes getting back into work? Can be a tough one. Shorty is lucky. I work at a school, so fortunately I do still have a couple more weeks left. We're just watching the tennis. Cricket was insane. Can't remember if I've talked about that much since we won it, but how good was that? And yeah, went to the tennis on Sunday, had a wedding on Saturday. So yeah, it was great. Been busy, but I just thought, now's the time to get back into some vids, smash some stuff out. But yeah, we'd really like to hear how you guys are going, personally and on your SuperCoach team. Let me know if you've got any questions, and also let me know what type of videos you'd like to see. Because obviously we're going through club by clubs, a bit of ranking positions in the tiers format like we did. Just the usual type of vids I do, but if you'd like to see something specifically, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. So today we're going to look at the Bombers, Fremantle, Geelong, who are, I feel like the Cats haven't been SuperCoach relevant for a while, but I'll tell you what they are now. Fremantle, I already said them, Giants and Gold Coast. So 5 clubs today, and we'll get through. And I did enjoy a comment the other day, because if you've been watching most of the videos, there was a rare appearance with Shorty and his glasses, which doesn't happen often. But as the years go on, the eyesight is getting poorer, and may have been in denial for some time. But I went out, got some new glasses, and I think they're going to feature today because I've had a bit of screen time today. Shorty's been just on the TikTok a bit, making a few videos, just scrolling through Marketplace. I'm trying to get a little L-shaped outdoor lounge couch for the back porch. I was pressure washing, however you want to say that. It's not a hard word to say, but butchered it. I was pressure washing the outside of the house the other day. Who would have thought? Shorty's just not handyman for 10 months of the year. Get this guy on a couple of holiday sessions and man, he's mowing lawns, he's fucking pressure washing the outside. Anyway, the long and the short of it is, we've got a bit of space. It's a bit of a nice space if you actually clear it out. So I want to get a couch and maybe, it's a nice spot to just sit out. Daylight savings, nice and sunny. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's get into some content. And the Bombers, probably first guy that'll be in most people's teams. I should probably learn how to pronounce the name. I think it's Saad El-Houli. And he is a guy that clearly at a basement price is going to be a fantastic option for us. Mid-season rookie. And a lot of us thought he was going to be our saviour last year, but he got injured. He looked like he was going to burst on the scene. Halfback flanker, 102k last year. The answer to our prayers. Didn't happen, but what it does do makes him a really nice option for us this year. Not going to spend much time on him. Who's calling me? Someone's calling me. Oh, jeez. I've nearly knocked the whole thing over. It wasn't even let's just see if we're still up and running here. I've nearly knocked the whole system. So we're still recording there. Still recording. Well, that would have been eventful for you out there. And my fan's fallen over. Well, this is quite the chaotic video. I thought it could be entertaining to answer a call on the video, but all I did was just nearly wrench my whole setup out of its ass and missed a phone call from a random number. Anyway, let's get back into it. Hopefully we're still relatively on screen. We can probably check that. Let's check that. Yeah, okay, cool. We're running. Okay, let's straighten things up. So yeah, don't have to speak too much on him because he picks himself, given his best 22. Got to make sure that happens, of course, but looks pretty likely. A man I do want to talk about is Archie Roberts, and again, he'll probably be in conversations with that halfback position. And he's a guy that I've mentioned. I just want to put him on the radar. He's I think it's about 340k, and he just has got a bit of a feel about a guy that you just see something that you like, and you just go, geez, this kid can play. We haven't seen stacks, but there's just something about him. It's all about the role for mine, but we see Dyson Heppel move on. And what we saw last year was a great ability to find the footy, and look how he really built. Look at these possession numbers that, as my fan fully goes arse over, but look at these numbers leading into his debut. And then he didn't muck around in his rise to AFL level. Some really nice numbers. Like, of course, you don't expect stacks from a debut. 18 touches, you take it. It was 80 points on the fantasy. Obviously didn't use it too well. And then, we've seen him finish with 103 and a 90 with 25 plus possessions. It just reminds me, and I'm not saying he's going to be this, but it reminds me of when Zach Merritt debuted, and there's not much of them, but gee, they've got a nice left foot action, and you just go, in time, that's going to be dangerous. Now, clearly Merritt's taken off, and we're not going to expect him to do that anytime soon, but I think if Roberts can find a way, and this is a bit of a gut feel call, and you're probably not going to pick him because Callum Mills is right next to him on the price range, and it just doesn't make sense. Price to price, Mills is far more reliable, not from just a scoring, but a job security point of view. So it's a highly risky pick, but keep this one in your back pocket for your draft. And I just think there's a lot going on with the half-back flank. You've got El Hooley, which we mentioned. You've got Ridley coming back. You've got Redmond's in there. Roberts can mount a case, and I think I'm probably missing some others. I could probably look, but Nick Martin's another one. Does he play half-back? That's the guy I was thinking of. But yeah, so just keep an eye on things. Keep an eye on it. I'm not saying that he's going to come out and average ridiculous numbers, but if all the cards fell for him, I think there's a world where he does average high 80s, which would be pretty handy. And it's not as though he hasn't done it already. And yes, it's a ridiculously small sample size, I know. But hey, sometimes you got to pick one that's a little bit different and just put it on the radar. So if Roberts is going nuts halfway through the year, remember you heard it here first, because I haven't heard him mentioned anywhere else. Now, I just want to touch on, just quickly, Darcy Parish, and do we trust him? He's about 480k. I'll just double check that. It's about 480k, but it's just the body for mine. He's 27 and in theory could return, but what worries me is just the consistent missing of games. Now, I think it's different when someone has maybe missed, had a shocking injury for 1 year. Otherwise, they're all pretty durable, 480k. But when you're just consistently missing games, it just makes me worry, and doesn't worry as much when they're maybe early 20s, and sometimes their body just takes a while to get to the rigours of AFL footy. But injury concerns and the way it has been for Parish, I believe it's hamstring. My memory serves me correct. Yeah, soft tissue of some description. Just concerns me a lot. I just can't see us picking him. The upside is clearly there. When he does score, or when he plays, he scores. And we did see some injury-affected games from memory last year. Definitely a slow start. But I just think that body is just an absolute no-no for me. There's just some players that, yeah, you might take the risk on it, but for me, it's just a big no thanks. I just feel like it's next to impossible to see him playing 20 plus games. At 480, yeah, he offers some value. There's no doubt about that. But I look at a Will Ashcroft, for example, and there's others around that price range that are they're trending on the up and could be anything. And they don't have that injury concern. I guess Parish is that probably example of a guy that we know can score, and we've seen it before. Do we go back to the well and hope he can find it again? Or do we get a bit forecasting towards an Ashcroft doing it, starting that premium window where we've probably seen the window of Parish already. That was 21 to 23 is a pretty impressive run of games. I wonder if he ever gets back to it. I think there's not enough value for mine because, like I've said, at that price, you've probably got to keep him for the year. I just can't see him playing enough games. So I'm happy to pass on him. It is a bit of a balancing act of, what's a bigger risk? The body? If he plays, he scores. Or is it more of a risk of a guy who's fully fit, no injury history? But will he ever be a premium? Will he have premium numbers? Like, a Finn Callahan, which we'll talk about later, or a Will Ashcroft. So it's what's more risky. I'll let you decide, but I think the type of injury, soft tissue, and the length of time he struggled with them concerns me. But his injury will impact, and if he does have an injury, this next guy I'm going to talk about. And I don't think I finished this before, but a comment that did make me laugh about the glasses was, I think it was something along the lines of Shorty picking his side without glasses, ranked outside the top 10k. Shorty picking with his glasses, top 500 finish. So it could be the difference, and I'm going to give them to you right now. Shorty top 500 mode is activated. So this pick that I'm going to talk about now, and be kind with the glasses. It's, Shorty's still just getting used to them on air, but I do need them. I'll tell you what, the eyes get a bit tired sometimes, so we do need them. Makes life easier, particularly when you have a longer video like this. But man, I'm going to talk about now is Ben Hobbs. Now, I'm not sure if many people, I haven't seen him spoken about much, but I thought he was about 300, but he's even cheaper. And you'll see him in my side, but I've just been trying a few things. 262. Now, let's just refresh our memories, guys, on what this guy can be and was talked about to be. He was a guy that had rave reviews about being everything the Bombers needed. Inside mid, big body, clearance bull. And it's something the Bombers have needed for some time. Pick 13, natural ball winner, competitive, tackles. In terms of they probably don't show us the weights anymore, do they? But I'm thinking he's about 90 kilos. I think he's about 190 centimetres. Well, he's 183, I misread him, but he's a big-bodied mid. There's no doubt about that. And I was doing a bit of research here, and I just thought I'd unleash and just keep these threads up here. Now, I suppose let's start with what he's done at AFL level. And probably Bombers fans, I'm calling on you. Why hasn't he been playing? Is it a pace issue? Yes, he's had injuries last year. I know there was some calf concerns, but the year before, averaged 74, getting some time in the midfield. It looked like he would continue to progress. There was often touches of around the 20 mark, and we'll look at the centre bounces in a moment, but he is a natural tackler. The clearance numbers are solid, for what would have been a second-year player. That's solid. The numbers were going right, but then injury hits, an average of 48, sub-affected games, in the mix early, injury hits mid-year, does finish in the side, so he's around the mark, but as you can see, sub-affected games, yuck, we don't want that. VFL form, big time. He ends the year, 5 games. He also did work his way into the AFL team off the back of these numbers, but some big possession and tackle counts for an AFL fantasy average of 106. And we have seen him dominate at VFL level for a while now. You even look at these 2023 numbers. This kid's too good for the VFL ranks. The question for me, and I was just going through individual games just to get a bit of a feel. There was a game here, I think he only played 3 quarters. Yeah, played the first 3 quarters and had 30 touches in 3 quarters. So he's too good for that level. Now, how's he going to get in the centre bounce? Let's take a look at those 2023 numbers, because that'll paint a picture of a guy that was getting opportunity. And how does it look? How does it change? Benny Hobbs, where was he? Actually didn't get that much opportunity. I thought he would. So he obviously was finding an ability to get 20-odd touches off a flank or a wing. Bombers fans will be able to tell me better. 2024. You're an idiot. That was 2024. Nice one, Shorty. Nice. 2023. Makes a lot more sense. We have about 40 to 50% centre bounce time. That's pretty cool. So he's probably, this was the Zach Merritt and Darcy Parish show. Obviously they were always in there. Dylan Shield was in there early. Will Setterfield. So what I want to talk about is 2024 and their mix moving forward. Now, how does he get in there? What's what is their lineup going to be in the midfield? Well, Zach Merritt's going to be in there. Durham, I actually was surprised to see that his numbers actually tapered off. I think that was coinciding a little bit with Caldwell and a little bit with Dylan Shield and a little bit with Darcy Parish returning by the looks of it. So, Durham, Merritt, Parish if he's fit. There's a big watch on that. So there's 3. I think Caldwell is definitely in there. He's definitely in there. And this is where it gets interesting. I don't think Setterfield's in the mix. I'd be surprised, whether that's through injury or form. Shield, again, surely even if he plays, why would they play him in the middle? Bombers fans, I'm calling on you. I just think, I'm looking at Essendon this year and I'm seeing a side that's regenerating, looking for the next wave of players. Like Elijah Sardis is another. He'll be vying for that next spot in the midfield. The positive thing is Jake Stringer does go. So probably the guy that they would throw in there as a big-bodied mid, explosive, was Stringer. Taller guy, big body, as good as Merritt and Parish are, they're smaller type mids. As is Durham. Durham's a heart and soul guy, but he's not Paddy Cripps or Marcus Bontempelli. I feel like I want to check that before I go dissing him, but I feel like he's just mid-180s. I guess I got Hobbsy wrong before, but so he's 185. Plays harder than that. He's a bit of a heart and soul guy, but I'm just very interested to see how this all shapes up. You normally see the midfield minutes, you'll have a couple, probably 2 or 3 with the main rotation. Parish and Merritt are your main midfield guys. High, more than 50% from Setterfield and Shield when they played. Essendon have quite a spread, and that probably speaks to a side that doesn't exactly know their best midfield mix. So I think Caldwell's definitely in there. Tell you what, if Parish goes down, we're going to jump all over Hobbs. I think he's one good pre-season away from playing and scoring really, really handy numbers. I think if we could just even get an average of somewhere in the high 70s, that'd be really handy. And we're not looking for much. If he can just find a way to fall in behind Merritt, Parish, Caldwell and Durham, if he can just be a rotation 5th line in, just getting 20 to 30%. Because let's take an individual game. Let's pick the Dogs, round 5. You've got Merritt having 82, Setterfield 69, Parish 54, Caldwell 46, and then Perkins 38. So your fifth guy in line gets 38. So you'll take that 3 or 4 out of every 10 centre bounces. Let's take a game later in the year. Adelaide, Merritt gets 74. Setterfield 50, Shield 63, Durham 53, and the 5th in line is Caldwell. Well, technically, it'd be Caldwell with 53%. So it does go to show that even if you are the 5th guy in the rotation, there's definitely 30% minimum on offer, centre bounce. Some games you might get in the 40s, or as Caldwell did, 53. It was quite an even spread game. Then you get others like Gold Coast, round 22, Merritt 89, Parish 61, 64 for Shield, Caldwell 50, and then your next guy is Durham at 32. So it ebbs and flows, but he's just got to get in the mix. He's got to get fit, get in the rotation. As you can probably tell, I've spent a bit of time on him. I'm excited about him. I want to pick this guy. I want to see. He's got talent. I've liked him for a while. Wanted the Cats to give a bit of love to him, recruit him. They didn't. I think his time's now. I'll tell you what, if Parish goes down, get on him. Even if not, watch his pre-season very, very closely. 20 minutes in, this could be a long video. We haven't even done one club. Let's get moving. I was going to briefly touch on Sardis, but it's much of the same conversation. Can he get opportunity? Is he AFL ready? From what I've seen, I'm not sure. I'm probably more hyped on Hobbs, as you can probably tell by the last 10 minutes, but let me know your thoughts on Sardis. Very interested to hear. So there's the Bombers. Fremantle, I don't have too much for you on the Dockers. Look, I was going through their fantasy just to try and get a bit of that was the Bombers, but I was just trying to get a bit of a feel for them. Couldn't really get much. The only one was Shea Bolton. I actually really like him, to be honest. Like, I think he's a fella that I feel is inconsistent and is a frustrating ride, but is definitely unders at 4.16. If this was last year's forward line where we're struggling to look for options, I feel like he's in. But this year, we've got a stack of mid-priced options, so I don't know if we need to sort of look at this type. He's a fella that the numbers, say what you will, he's got class. I feel like he's a fella that hasn't really consistently reached his potential, but he can really shine, particularly in a good side. I think last year my feeling it was that the Tigers start to go poorly. He was halfway out the door, probably wasn't bonding with the new setup, the new coach. A player in that sort of role, it's a bit harder to do well when your side's getting pumped. But he is a guy that's averaged 96 before, 87, 84, 86. Like, he can certainly play, and he's a guy that's probably your 30 to 40% centre bounce time, go forward, capable of kicking goals, probably more explosive out of the stoppage. By his nature, even this is a good year, and I haven't looked at this previous, but I'm sure we've got some stinkers in here. A 150, a 150, 150, and a 140. So he goes big. But in amongst that, a 54, a 65, a 56, a 63, and a 50. So, you can go from him scoring 151 thinking you've got the best pick in the world to the next 2 weeks you're copping a 56 and a 63. And then look at this for a run. Then he goes 158. That is outrageous. That probably sums up Shea Bolton if ever you needed a bit of a summary. So it's going to be a roller coaster ride. This one's probably more of a draft selection for me. He's priced well. If you wanted a price prediction, I think I did my forwards tier video a week or so ago, and I put him in the early 90s. I think you've got Sarong, you've got Young, you've got Brayshaw. There's a few in that midfield mix. He'll definitely be in there and pinch hit and then punch forward. But yeah, I think an average in the early 90s. So look, I think there's better options out there when you weigh it all up with the risk and the price and everything. I think there's some great mid-priced options, which is the way our forward lines are trending. So most are passing on Bolton, but one to definitely keep up the sleeve for your draft team. Now, I'm going to move on to the Cats, and we've got a fair bit to talk about, actually. The first one is Bailey Smith, and I'm not going to talk much on this because I think it's pretty straightforward and obvious. Could be the number one forward. I feel like it's out of him or Horn Francis. Just pick him. Simple as that. He's going to be in our centre bounce rotation regularly. As long as he gets his fitness up and comes back nicely off that knee, he's averaging high 90s for sure. Best case scenario, he could average around 105. But yeah, this isn't one to muck around on. It's plain and simple. He is priced under 400. This is one of the biggest locks of the game. Get him in. Next guy is Max Holmes, and he is available as a defender and a mid. And I said in a video the other day that for a long time the Geelong midfield has been Selwoods and Dangerfields. It is now Holmes and Smith's midfield. Yes, Danger's still going to play a role, but this kid, do not sleep on him. He had a mini breakout last year. Well, he did break out. He bumped it up by over 20 points. Went from 79 to 99, 20-point rise. But there's the finals. I love guys that turn it on in the finals because it just says to me that they've got that big game ability. And he went nuts, 152 against Port. And dare I even look at this bloody prelim. But that's 20 touches from about, I think he went off in the third quarter. So he would have been about the highest scorer on the ground, I would imagine, that time. 53% time on ground. He's got natural pace. He'll take a mark. He'll run and gun. He'll take territory. His metres gained would be huge. I'd love to have a look at some of those numbers. Do we have that? Metres gained? Yeah, so he's a high metres gained player. 600, 500 plus on so many occasions. His impact is high. He can kick a goal from outside 50. And it's just a changing of the baton now. There were, probably start of the year, we were talking about Holmes off the halfback flank. And now we're talking about him as a genuine premium mid. As you can see, the centre bounces. It's interesting, it didn't absolutely from memory line up or correlate with his scoring. There was no absolute shift to say that his scoring went bonkers once a midfielder. He scored pretty well at the start of the year. Let's see if that actually checks out. So some centre bounce, but mainly moved in round 10. So it was the first 9 rounds. Pretty solid. But then, he did get a sugar hit. Definite sugar hit from round 10 when he did go in there till round 15. And I think he only got moved back out. It looks like when Dangerfield came back, that's when Holmesy got moved out a bit. But then they definitely brought him back in a bit more consistently from round 19. And as you'll see, he did have midfield time and still scored 71, 80 and 69 and a 73. So it doesn't always check out. These numbers don't always correlate. But just from an overall visual feel and a Geelong supporter giving you that sense of where we're at as a club, Paddy is passing the baton on. There's no doubt he's still one of our most explosive mids, but from a fitness point of view, I don't see him playing as many games, and I just think it's time to pass that baton. So, look, let's say he just does what he did last year. You've got a defender averaging 99. I see him bumping this average beyond 105, and if all goes well, I'm not putting it beyond him to nudge 110. Just mark that down in your diaries, ladies and gentlemen. January 13, Shorty reckons Holmes will average 110. Crazy, crazy scenes. So big fan of him. He's in my side. Toby Conway, I feel like I've spoken about enough and a lot. The guy is all ahead of him to be the Cats' number 1 ruck. He's had some good numbers at VFL level. They're not going to jump off the page, but they're pretty nice, pretty consistent, particularly the only games he played in 2024, 30 plus most of the time in the hitouts. And he's actually, if you watch some YouTube clips in the VFL, very good below his knees. So Conway is priced at, I think, about 340. Clearly, don't get me wrong, it's a risky price range. The way Geelong do look at their rucks makes me nervous about picking him. I think it's very likely that they've wrapped this kid up in cotton wool for some time now. And I just think the way they've kept Reece Stanley around, Stanley absolutely should have retired. He should have. He was out of favour for many times last year, but found a way to get back. If Conway has a fit and good pre-season, the number 1 ruck spot is his. No doubt. But I think there is a world where Chris Scott, we're up against Gawn, we're up against Tristan Cherry. Let's bring Stanley in to give the young fella a chop out. They love Conway, high hopes, so they're not going to give him 10 weeks in a row shouldering the ruck on his own week in, week out. He's been injured far too much and they rate him far too highly. So that's probably my major drawback. I think on the games that he rucks solo, I can see him averaging 90. But I do feel like those days just aren't quite here. So I am cooling a little bit. I have definitely been throwing Tom DeConning into my side a bit recently. I just think Scotty will definitely look at easing the load on this kid, whether it's a resting, whether it's a substitution at 3/4 time from time to time, or whether it's Reece Stanley coming in. So maybe the risk is starting to outweigh the reward. And like I said, I picked him in December. It's a December team. We're getting funky. But as we get to mid-January, Shorty's got the glasses on and he's straightening up. So that's the straightening up, playing in the V, keeping it a bit safer. So I've eased on him a bit, just from a structure, team position point of view. Still think when he plays number 1 ruck, the kid's going to average some real nice numbers. One for the future. Cam Guthrie is another fella that I've seen bob up in the comments, but not for me. He's 278 and, talk about the changing of the baton in the Geelong midfield. Well, he's part of that and he's passing it on. He's been a great player in the past for the Cats, but not only is his body seems very much cooked, but I think the only role left for him would be half-back. And even when he did return at times, he looked off the mark. I mean, he just looked slow. He looked fresh against the Blues upon return, but then, it took a toll, and he was injured again. And this is a guy that's missed a lot of footy the last couple of years. So far better options. I just wanted to touch on him because I have seen him talked about, but far better options if you ask my opinion. And the last one is a guy that I think was yesterday's hero and one that we've cooled on, and I'd just love to get a temperature check from you guys out there, and that's Tom Stewart. Now, sometimes we get a little reactive in SuperCoach and we go, oh, Jesus Christ, never again with Tommy Stewart. He gets tagged, he gets put out of the game far too easy. That is where most people are at with him. But can I offer the counter view that this is a guy that comfortably average is in and around 110. You can pick him up at 96, and that 96 isn't fully form related, but he did get subbed off late in the second quarter, I think it was, against West Coast with a 33. So probably if you take that away, he's probably averaging 100, but he's at 520. And I guess the question mark is, will he be able to overcome the negating roles that clubs did place on him at halfback? We also had this game against the Lions where he was subbed off. He was actually best on ground to this point, intercepting bloody everything. So he's had 2 sub-affected games, which would put him over 100. Let's work that out, actually. What was it? A 33 and a 62. Don't get me wrong, my concerns are right there. I'm right there with you. But so what was 96.7 times 22? Let's just, we'll call it that. Let's take away the 62 and the 33 and divide that by 20 games. 101.6. A down year, but not disgraceful. So I guess the question mark is, can he find a way to counter these types of approaches by clubs? And to an extent he did. Like, it was moving into the midfield, and you would have seen it on AFL 360 and on the couch. He would start in the middle and then just float back and seemingly drop all sorts of tags. Bizarre. So that move was implemented round 16, predominantly to round 23. Round 16. So, have a look at that, I guess when he played just half back, particularly when sides started cotton on that you could stop him pretty well, from round 13, he really, it was round 16, wasn't it, the Bombers, 97, 115, 105, 121, 139, 120, 76, 104. And then he got injured, hamstring concerns. But he was back to his best. He was back to his 110 best. So, look, I probably don't want to enter the season with a premium that I know is susceptible to being tagged, and that's concerning. Probably don't want to. He hasn't entered my team at any stage, but I think he's being slept on. I think he's worth a consider. He was a guy that we used to talk about as, you can just lock him in, set and forget, he's fine. One bad year, we've seen it happen before with other midfielders that we used to talk about being very taggable. And then it just seems to be, last month's newspaper. We just don't talk about it anymore. They get better. They deal with it. They're good players. They work out how to do it. So I think the Cats found a key to working it out late last year. I wonder what we'll see next year. But he certainly should be considered. That was all for the Cats. I will do Gold Coast and the Giants. They actually didn't have a stack to talk about from what I could tell. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'm probably going to smash through them. But if I'm missing anyone so far or from these next 2 clubs, let me know. Because for Gold Coast, I only had Dan Rioli and one other fella. And quite simply for me, Rioli's a very nice player, but a bit limited for me. I think he's very much... He's a great player to watch. Handball receive, run and gun. But I think you're getting about what you're paying for. I'm not seeing a big boost in his numbers. I did the Premium Defenders tier rankings the other day, and I had him in the early 90s. I think it's about right for him. Where, I suppose he did take a lot of kick-ins last year, and I think he probably didn't. There might be some scope actually, but he's not one for me that I just think he's too easy to be stopped, and I know there are players like a Lockie Whitfield where they do seem very stoppable, but they come out and average 110. I've got no real absolute case against Dan Rioli. It's just that I haven't even considered him. I think there's a lot better options down in our back line. I don't think we've ever seen a consistent ceiling. And yes, he's averaged 92. We've seen some big games with a couple of 130s, but he does still chuck in just solid games. Solid games where he scores 80 or 90, still gets plenty of the ball. And I think that's because he is a highly uncontested player. I haven't checked this, but I'd be feeling nearly 3/4 of his touches are uncontested. So let's have a look. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So last year, averaged about 22 touches, 16 of which uncontested. So I just prefer others. I don't think you're getting value. I don't see huge upside despite the club switch. Just not for me. Not for me, but happy to hear a counter view. The other one is speculative, and that's Bailey Humphrey. When is this guy going to come on and do what we all think he can? I hear all the time, Bailey Humphrey, super talented, big-bodied mid. Gee, he's got some brute force. High pick previously. Well, when are we going to see it consistently? I'm not going to spend much time on him because it is very much who knows when. 270k. We've been waiting a while, Bailey. I know he's only played 2 years, but we haven't even really seen it. We saw a bit of it in 2019. I shouldn't, 2023, shouldn't sell him out too hard because he did have a nice run here of rounds 9 to 12 where he did score 90 plus on all of these occasions, and we saw, talk about Rioli being uncontested. I would imagine in those games, Rioli, sorry, I'm getting confused here, Humphrey would have had high contested footy, and there you go. Some double-figured contested pill, more contested footy than uncontested most of the time, or at least 50-50. That's the profile for him. That's what we want to see. But I don't know if it's ready to be seen yet because they're pretty stacked in the midfield. You've got Anderson, you've got Rao, you've got Miller. Flanders may go back there with Rioli coming in the side. I don't know. I actually think Alex Davies has a lot to like in terms of that hard in and under mid, which Humphreys would want to be one day. Look, I think for now, Humphreys, I keep calling him Humphreys, there's no S there, mate, but Humphrey is probably more of a guy that is a wait and see, build up the tank, half forward flank, pushing in for the occasional centre bounce, but I just think he's probably more of a bits and pieces guy for now. I don't think we're going to see it consistent for him, and he's not one that I've considered. I see more opportunity in a Ben Hobbs, like we spoke about before, because Essendon's midfield is still taking shape, and I think they're a developing team. Gold Coast are charging to the 8. They want to be a contender. They want to be taken seriously. Very, very well-established midfield 3. Very clear-cut. Look at those numbers. It's consistent. If you're 4th or 5th, we did the numbers before with Essendon. If you're 4th or 5th in the Gold Coast rotation, you're lucky to get 20% here because they do get Anderson, Rowell and Miller in there very, very consistently. So you will see, you can go through it yourself. If you're 5th in line, you're not getting much of it. But yeah, something to consider. I think he's one for the future. I think he'll have forward eligibility for us one day and it'll be very, very nice. But just not yet. And the last club we're going to take a look at is the Giants. Sorry for a bit of a lengthy video. Hopefully you've stuck with me all this way. I will timestamp it to do the specific clubs. But the Giants, again, I didn't find a stack. From a draftee point of view, James Leake was taken quite high. I think he's an intercepting type of defender. Didn't get a go much at all last year, I don't think. No, didn't. So, one for your defensive bench. Tom Green. Spoken about him in other videos. He's a guy that I feel like had a year that a bit Tom Stewart-like. There's something about Tom Green that we don't like. We used to love him. Now he's just hurt us a bit. Oh, he handballs too much. Oh, he doesn't hurt you. He turns it over. And I agree with all that. I do. But there's something about him I love, and we've talked about him having a year that was a bit off, and he's averaged 106, and if you take out this 5 that was sub-affected, he averages 110 or something around that. I think he's one of a few guys in the league that could average 120. There's not many guys that could do that. It wouldn't shock me to see him go beyond 115 this year. It also wouldn't shock me to just average 107 and frustrate us. He reminds me of Paddy Cripps, plays in a very similar way. I could see Tommy Green wrapping the Brownlow around his neck one day. But we've had similar feelings with Cripps over the journey. And I think we'll see a very similar feel to this. At his best, I think Tom Green will average these types of Cripps numbers, 119, 117. But if it doesn't quite happen for him, for whatever reason, I think we can see it slip back to 97 and 110. And, he won a Brownlow with a 110, but 97 here. Green wins a bit more volume of the footy than Cripper. So I don't think he's ever going to drop to 97s. But the comparison for mine is Nat Fyfe. We've had this conversation before, and for a long time, SuperCoaches, you'll remember, before Nat Fyfe really went bonkers, we had the same discussions. And that was 2013. He'd started really well. Look at that start to his career. Fantastic. We love him. But by 2013, we're talking about him as a guy that, he just butchers the footy. He just bangs it on his boot. Gee, he can win it, but I don't know if he uses it well enough to ever be selected as a premium. We'll have a look at the next couple of years, 120, 120. So it can be done. It can be done. And there are numbers to back that up. You can look at it yourself if you like. But Green, yes, he doesn't use it fantastically. He can dump kick sometimes. His contested numbers are through the roof. But Fyfe was able to clean it up. And we've seen other guys clean it up before too. And let's not forget that Green is 23. He'll be 24. When he speaks about what he wants to be as a footballer, he is so driven. And that excites me. This isn't a guy that's just happy with where he's at. He is striving to be better. And he is a strong consider for my side. A strong consider. Yeah, we'd probably like him to take a few more marks. We'd honestly, probably the area for a bit of improvement is tackling for mine. I think for a guy that's in there and a lot, we need more than 4 tackles a game, Greenie. So, but as you can see, the clanger rate is high, and that's not to say that the clangers aren't exactly what we're worried about. It's just the effectiveness. Playing a role that he plays, he's always going to have clangers. But I think from watching him play, sometimes he just misses targets that he shouldn't. Being an inside mid, yeah, sometimes you'll boot it out of the clearance and it gets turned over. That's going to happen sometimes. But effective clearance-wise, it's just not good enough. Like, we're looking at a guy who's averaging about 31 touches, and only 20 of those, maybe 64%'s not too bad. The numbers don't look that bad, but tell me I'm wrong. Tell me he's not a guy that should use the footy better. There's times where I see him miss sloppy handballs, or just there's kicks that you can dump, and then there's kicks you don't need to dump. Sometimes he gets a bit Clayton Oliver chuckled on the boot style, but Oliver's averaged 124, 120 plus before. So these types of players can do it. Wouldn't shock me. I'm not saying he's a lock for my side, but I love him and he's a strong consider. I just think there's something in there we just need to see him polish up on a little bit. But I still feel like we look at this guy and he has room for improvement, and without injury, he's averaged 110. Jesus Christ, wait, look out when he does improve. Holy shit, we'll be in trouble then. So let me know your thoughts. But the last one is Finn Callaghan, and I'm not sure on him. He's probably a guy that would be looking for a bit of extra centre bounce time. Again, a high pick. I like him. He's a beautiful left footer. Runs away from the stoppage nicely. Bit of an inside and outside type of player. Excuse me, Jesus Christ. But this Melbourne game was the one. 36 touches. He was best on ground. Gee, he was fantastic. That's the mark of a guy that we could see him turn into. I just don't know if it's going to be this year. It could be. It definitely could be, but I won't calculate the numbers right now because I know it's been a long video already. But you can see he did get opportunity of some higher 40+ percentage centre bounces. I did the numbers before. When he was getting those, he averaged 88 from these games. So it didn't take off, but it was improved. I wonder, he's a little bit held back by Bedford in the way that the Giants do choose to have a tagger in there. I think he loses out a bit there. And because he is a nice outside player, he can still be effective on a wing, but it's not what we want from SuperCoach. Where's Cornelio's body at? Again, that could impact him. So he's a high pick. He oozes class. I see him averaging 100 at some stages in his career. I spoke about him last year about possibly taking his game towards the 90s. We got a little improvement, not quite enough. Will he go bang and take it to the high 90s right here, or will we get some steady improvement? I'm probably more in the camp of steady improvement. Wouldn't shock me if he averaged around the 90s or in the 90s. But at that price, it's not enough. We need to be looking at a guy. He's 440. We need to look at a guy that could insanely explode. I don't know if Callaghan is that guy. Will Ashcroft I look at, who's basically the same price. I see him going past McCluggage. And I had a Brisbane mate tell me he could be our number one mid. He feels like Neil's just tapering off his body, So it could be Ashcroft's year. Ashcroft is a guy I could see nudging 105, 110. Not so much for Callaghan, but I've had a few people ask about him. So there is a bit of hype for the young man. But I'm going to wrap it up there. It's been a pretty solid video and preview. These are longer ones, but I feel like it's easier to dish out the content by doing them all at once. So definitely a heavy focus on the Bombers and the Cats. If you reckon I've missed a few from the Dockers, Gold Coast and the Giants, let me know. But next up, I think I'll have probably another tiers video. And I have been tinkering with the side. So probably late Jan, there'll be another team update as well, and then we'll really get rolling as preseason seriously starts to pick up. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, thanks for your company. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you've stayed through from the start to the finish, absolute legend. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.